Our original intention was for this update to be primarily for our patrons, so our students, faculty, and staff who utilize the pantry. But increasingly, as we see the folks coming on the list, we see lots of campus partners who equally have interest in the vision and the timeline. So whether you are a patron or a campus partner, or really whoever you are, thanks for being here today. We're so excited to have you. My name is Mike Jancola. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor and Student Ombuds, and work closely with the PAC Essentials Initiative. And I'm just so proud of the work that we do at the pantry. I'm one of the founders of the pantry, and I don't think we could have ever envisioned when we started this 10 years ago that it would grow to what it is today. And much of that is because of the really dedicated staff we've had over the years. And so I want to turn it over to a couple of them to also introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Rose Krebs and I am the program coordinator here at Feed the Pack Food Pantry. And I've been a part of the team in a variety of roles as a student and now as a staff member. I'm happy you all are here to learn about some of our future goals for the pantry.
Hi, my name is Taylor Sly. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista for Feed the Pack, replacing Maddie, who was our Vista last year. But in that role, I built capacity for the pantry through assisting Rose and our student leadership team and creating opportunities for Feed the Pack. And thank you for coming.
I don't think we have any of our student leadership members on the call today. Is that right, Rose?
Yeah, they all have class that overlap with this time.
Okay, didn't want to miss them because they're a significant part of our team as well. We've got a few slides that we'd like to share with you today, and before we go any further, I think we forgot to acknowledge that we are going to try to record today's session so that we can share that with others who couldn't be here today, and so hopefully that's okay with everyone. What we want to do today is share the vision for the PAC Essentials Hub. And inclusive in that, of course, is the relocation to the North Hall and with the Feed the Pack Pantry as well. And so we'll go through a few things here, and then we'll certainly have opportunities for questions. You can certainly put those in the chat, and we'll have some time at the end to have some discussion as well. But to start off, the Division of Academic and Student Affairs is committed. So much of what we do is working with the whole student. And I think all of us on the call acknowledge that providing essential resources so that students don't have to choose between their academics and their basic needs. And that's an important value for the division, for the institution. And I want to thank so many of you on the call who are partners who help support this work, whether it be through the pantry or through the PAC Essentials Initiative more broadly. And so Rose is going to share a little bit about the mission for the Feed the Pack.
Yeah, so the mission of Feed the Pack Food Pantry is to help meet the food needs of all members of our NC State community with dignity and respect.
And that mission for the pantry is one that we've had now for 10 years. And while a lot has changed, our commitment hasn't changed, that we want to make sure that we do our work with dignity and respect, and that it certainly, we talk about students, but it's important to note that the pantry serves all members of our campus community, students, faculty, and staff.
Yeah, and so over the last academic year, that support has looked like over 6,000 pantry visits during the academic year, as well as distributing almost 99,000 pounds of food from 2021 to 2022 academic year. And I'll hand it over to Mike to talk a little bit more about the PAC Essentials applications that he sees as well.
Yeah, and I think, and Rose, you can correct me on this, but I think, each of the last 2 years, we've distributed more food in that 1 year than we have all the previous years combined. And so certainly the need since the pandemic has started in March of 2020 has really elevated, and we've known for a long time that the pantry was an essential service for our campus community. We see that even more over the last couple of years. As Rose said, we're seeing that demand also on the student side with the PAC Essentials. While the pantry is open for the whole campus community, PAC Essentials is a resource that's just for students. And to give you an idea, last academic year, we had just under 1,700 applications. This year, thus far, we're already about 850 applications. So you can see that while much of the need had increased during the pandemic, it continues at a high level. And you'll see that during the last academic year, we provided just under $360,000 worth of direct support to students. That's separate from what is done through the pantry. This is just through our student emergency fund and then our meal and housing scholarship programs. So a lot of direct support to ensure that we're helping to meet the needs of students. At this point, I want to just quickly introduce another member of our team. Stevie Gamet is here, and Stevie was just recently hired to join the PAC Essentials team. She's a PhD student, and we're very, very excited to have her. Stevie, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I will share that Stevie has served as a social worker in a previous life prior to coming back to get her PhD, and so those skills and that experience that she has will serve our students very, very well. So Stevie, thanks for being here today and for joining the team recently. You'll see there on the numbers as well that, since COVID, so March of 2020, we've had over 6,700 PAC Essentials applications. To put that in perspective, prior to the pandemic, we would get about 300 to 400 a year. Those times are gone. We will not go back to that level. In fact, we know through the surveys of students that prior to the pandemic, about 14.5% of our students were experiencing food insecurity, and that number spiked to 23% during November of 2020, the last time we've done that survey. And in the first survey, our housing insecurity numbers were 10%, and they've spiked to 15%. When we use these statistics, sometimes it can cause us to fog over. I think it's important to put that in perspective. One student walking around our campus, not knowing where they're going to access food or being concerned that they're going to run out of food before the semester ends, is too many. So whether we're talking about 14.5 or whether we're talking about 23%, the fact of the matter is one student is too many. And so we're committed through our work to making sure we do what we can to support students and eradicate food insecurity, not just with our students, but with our staff and faculty as well. So the next thing we want to do, and some of you on the call may have already heard about this, been a part of discussions, provided feedback, but just to kind of baseline for everyone, we wanted to share briefly the vision for the PAC Essentials Hub and what will happen over the coming months. And at the end of the presentation, we'll talk more about a timeline. But in essence, the PAC Essentials Hub is really the next iteration of our services, primarily to students, but certainly through the pantry for our staff and faculty as well. And we see that as a physical and a virtual one-stop service center. So right now, other than the Feed the PAC pantry, we didn't have any physical location where students could go for support through PAC Essentials. All of our work was done over the phone or meeting with Zoom with students. But increasingly, we see the need for there to be a community space and an opportunity for members of our campus community to come together and feel the support of being in that community together. And that's largely what we envision and accomplishing with the PAC Essentials Hub. That community space will allow us, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit, but it'll allow us to connect with Raleigh-based, Wake County-based North Carolina resources as well. We increasingly are in conversations with the city of Raleigh and with Wake County, making the point that our students, our staff, our faculty are citizens of Wake County and of Raleigh. And so largely trying to tap into the resources that are available for the greater community to supplement what we're able to offer to the on-campus population. And so there'll be a space where we, for example, can have meetings with the SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, where at the beginning of semesters, we can have meetings with students to be able to fill out the applications or staff if they qualify so that they can access those resources. That's just one example of how we intend to use the community space in the hub. The PAC Essentials initiative, since we started it back in 2017, was really meant to be a coordination of services. And that'll continue. We'll continue to have the PAC Essentials website, which will be the repository for resources both on and off campus. So that won't change, but we'll now have a physical space to put to bear those resources and help connect to those in need. And then you also see the last point here is that our goal and vision is to have staff that's available at the hub. Right now, the pantry, when it's open, there are volunteers there, but we rarely have staff there during our operational hours. It's primarily our volunteers. But we aim to have staff on site so that we can meet with students, staff when they come in, but also be able to expand the hours that we have the pantry open to better meet the needs of our patrons. So that's just a quick overview of the vision for the hub. It'll be in North Hall, and we'll show some drawings and renderings in just a minute to give you a better sense for what we're aiming to accomplish with this new initiative. So what you'll see here are just a couple slides, kind of the pre-space, so what it looked like before construction, and we'll show some work in progress pictures here in a little bit. But to kind of orient you, many of you probably know North Hall as a residence hall that's on Hillsborough Street. It's a former hotel and the university bought many years ago. And so it'll continue to operate as a residence hall on the upper floors. This is the lobby of that space. And again, you'll see in a little bit the orientation. But if you look at the picture on the right, you see those windows. Those windows are outlooking Hillsborough Street. So from a location standpoint, it's very convenient. But this gives you a sense of the community space that we'll have to access once we open up the hub.
And here's another perspective of North Hall from the outside. So essentially everything will move up from where it is. All of the current space for the computer lab and the RA space will go to the second floor, and then our hub will be on that first floor right when you walk into North Hall. In addition to this, so in comparison to where our current location is, this map is a little more zoomed in, but it's actually a little bit more convenient to the folks at the College of Vet Medicine. And this map kind of shows a different perspective of it in regards to that. And there are also various bus lines that can reach our patrons and still get them to that location, including Wolf Line buses, 41, 52, 50, and 51. As well as some Go Raleigh buses. And there will also be an additional parking spot allocation. So currently in our space, right in front of our pantry, there's a 15-minute space for our patrons to park and, use our resource. But we will have 2 spaces in this new location.
And I'll just add to that, thank you, Taylor, that we've been in conversations with transportation and they've been incredible partners for us, and we'll continue to partner with them to try to make sure that we have the space that we need for our patrons, but also for our donors. We have some donors that bring donations every week, and some of them say, I'm right up front. I hope I don't get a ticket while they're dropping stuff off. And we want to make sure that the space is accessible, most importantly for our patrons, but also for our donors and our community partners that will be coming in to meet with students and patrons of the space. And so we'll continue to work with transportation, but they've been really good about allocating initially 2 spots that, as Taylor said, our initial spots are for students. These spots now at the new location will be for anybody that's visiting the hub. So it'll be inclusive of donors and other partners as well, staff and students that are using the pantry.
So with the move to North Hall, you can see in this blueprint here on this slide, the main new pantry space will be where it says new food shop there in the upper center space. That will include the main area of the pantry, as well as an additional room that will be a storage space, as well as room for volunteers and members of the leadership team, graduate assistants, or others who are working in the space to have some space to work actively in the pantry, whether that's for office hours or for just providing support during pantry operation hours. In this new space, we will still have refrigeration and freezing capacity. We don't anticipate having any disruption of service when we move, and we don't anticipate having any changes in the products and items we provide in the pantry once we move. We're in the process of securing refrigeration and freezing right now, and we'll still have produce, perishables, non-perishables, and hygiene products in this new space. We'll actually be increasing our space a little bit, that main area of the pantry, not including the dry food storage is actually larger than our current space, including the back rooms and the cooler currently. So that will hopefully allow us to have a little bit more space on our shelving, as well as have some additional storage space when we have items in excess. So the community programming area will be that space in the center of the blueprint there, as well as in the bottom left corner, we have some space for offices and some additional storage space for the folks who are going to be working over there to help staff the hub, as well as for any community outreach events and other programs that we're offering through that space. For our volunteers, we'll be providing updated volunteer materials, as well as some orientation materials and training so that they will feel comfortable operating in this new space because it is a transition period. And we'll also be creating some orientation videos just in general for our donors, for our patrons, and others who use the space. And this next slide shows just kind of a zoomed in view of the pantry layout, showing the refrigeration and freezing space, as well as having some additional space for dry food storage and shelving spaces within the pantry. And the progress is already underway. So this space here shows the space on, well, the picture on the left there is just showing where one of the walls is currently getting moved so that we can have some more space in the pantry itself. So where that gray panel half wall right there is, I guess, is going to be where the wall is getting moved out to. And in the right picture, that's just a picture of what the RA room looks like currently. That will be transformed into the food storage room for the pantry, and that space where I talked about the volunteers would have space to work, as well as space for like when someone comes to check out, that's where the computer and scale and all the stuff that we have in that area of the pantry will be, as well as some space for volunteers to work.
I think one of the things that's important to note too, that we're really proud of, is when we started the pantry 10 years ago, we started with non-perishable. It was a smaller way to dip our toe in the ground, but we knew that our vision was always to get to more healthy, fresh foods and culturally appropriate foods. And when we moved to our existing location, we were able to take a big step forward by turning on the refrigerator and freezers, as Rose has indicated. But as we talk to a lot of our partners, or in other institutions around the UNC system and around the country, one of the things that makes our Feed the Pack really special is that we do have access to that freezer and refrigerator space, which allows us to do more donations with local businesses and get more of that fresh and healthier food. And many of our counterparts around the country have access to pantries, but may not have that freezer and refrigeration space. And that was important to us, that with this move, we wanted to make sure we were taking a step forward, that we weren't taking a step backwards. The current space certainly has a nice walk-in cooler, which was one of the outgrowths of using an old convenience store that was no longer viable. And so when we were envisioning this space, we needed to create that. In fact, just this week, Rose is working to order the refrigerators and freezers that we'll use in the new space. And so I think that's something we can be proud of and really think about how we provide not only just food, but like I said, more fresh, healthy, and culturally appropriate food, which is consistent with our vision. So we're getting towards the end of the presentation now. So if there are questions that you would feel more comfortable putting in the chat, feel free to do that. And or you can unmute here in a minute, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. A quick word about the timeline. One of the great things is we're working with our DASA facility staff, Division of Academic and Student Affairs. And so that really allows us to control timeline a little bit better than if we were working with, say, a private contractor. And so that staff has been working very hard. Rose showed those pictures. They're making good progress. And by all accounts, we're looking for like a mid-March move. When we say mid-March, obviously that'll shift a little bit based on when the freezers and the refrigerators arrive. And then also you saw in those pictures, we don't have the storefront, the glass windows up yet. And so once those arrive and get installed, that'll really dictate what that date looks like. But we will absolutely communicate that. You see that on the screen, to all of our patrons and campus partners through emails, through the existing list that we use for the pantry, social media, and our newsletters. we'll make sure that folks know about that date. I think the important thing for any patrons that are on the call today is it's very important to us that you know that we will not have a disruption in service. And so our commitment is to make the move over the weekend so that we would not miss a Tuesday opening. So we'll finish up and close out our Friday service at the old pantry, and our commitment is to open the new service on Tuesday, or whatever our hours will be for the new service. And so there won't be a disruption in service. That's our commitment. So while we can't say definitively today we're going to move on March 11th, March 12th, March 20th, what we can assure you is there will not be a disruption in service. And I think that's critically important for us to communicate to any patrons that are on the call today, or to those who work with patrons to assure them of that. With that, we'll certainly have a need for volunteers. The good news is we've made moves before. This is actually our, I need to think up, Rose, our 5th location. If you count, yeah, if you count the gym, which was kind of a short-lived. And so we know how to make the move, but we also know to make the move, we'll need volunteers. And we're working with a couple groups right now. We may communicate additional needs as we get closer for volunteers to make that happen over the weekend or late on the week, on a Friday, so that we can make that commitment of reopening in the new location. So that's our timeline. I think at this point, we'll just open it up for any questions, any feedback that you have. What has made the pantry what it is over the last 10 years is it's a resource for the community by the community. And so I say it only exists because the community needs it, and it only exists because the community supports it. And that support by way of volunteers, by way of donors, financial donors, as well as those donating food, the team that helps to support that, the student leadership, all the different folks that are involved in making that work. And so with that, we want to kind of open this up to a community discussion for any questions you have, any feedback you may have for us.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay? This is Anna Martin.
Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for your dedication to this program. I have been volunteering during the summers for quite a while, back when it was in Harrelson and the gym and Broughton and all the different locations that it's moved to. So it's so great to see that you guys are growing and having more space and really bringing together, multiple partners to serve the staff and students of our community. So thank you for hosting this today. It was very informative, and look forward to seeing the new space, hopefully before the summer, but definitely during the summer.
Thanks for that, Anna, and thanks for kind of a trip down memory lane in terms of our different locations and for your support over those years. I see Samaya is on the call, and Samaya was one of those early people when we were trying to renovate the space in Harrelson to make that space work. So like I said, with each space, I think we can honestly say we've improved. And that's our goal and vision with this new space, that, like we would have loved to not have to move 5 times, but with each move comes progress. And so that's a good thing. So again, thanks to you, and thanks to Samaya.
I'm very excited that this project is moving forward as quickly as it has. And I'm hoping this will be a good permanent location for the foreseeable future, so you don't have to move again.
That's our hope, Samaya. Right. I think so. I think we're making the decisions in this process that hopefully will allow us to stay there and feel like it's going to meet the needs of the community. I see there was a question about the opening hours. Rose, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so we will continue on the same hours. If we change our hours at all, it'll be to add hours. And if we do change our hours, that will all be communicated out when we send information about the location change out, as well as signage in the pantry, making sure we have enough volunteers to staff those hours, as well as just making sure that that is clearly communicated out to our community. And then over the summer, our hours always transition a little bit, but again, that'll be communicated out beforehand.
One of the exciting things that the staff with the pantry was able to do just probably about a couple of weeks ago was to add some evening hours. So if you haven't heard, the pantry is now open from 5 to 9 p.m. to accommodate largely our students who have said that those afternoon hours are busy with class. So that's an example of how we're trying to be more responsive with the hours. Additionally, not just with the pantry, but with the hub itself, we do envision having staff over there so that there will be ways to connect outside of just the open hours of the pantry for other support services. And we didn't talk much about this, but I'll just say a couple things about what we envision doing there. We had a very successful campaign. I want to thank folks like Josh Privet, and I see that Jacqueline is on the call, and Peyton, and maybe some of the other development folks who were really helpful when we did a campaign back in the fall to help donors help us to buy cookware kits. So for many of our patrons who don't have access to frying pans and can openers and other items needed to be able to cook the food. And so with those private donations, we will be purchasing cookware kits that folks can sign out. Our goal is that they would sign them out, and then when they graduate or don't need them any longer, they bring them back so that we can put those back into service and rotate that through. But that's one example of an expansion of service that we will offer in the new space that we don't currently offer. We also envision working with, there are several groups over the years that have done like a clothing drive, or a winter coat drive, the Staff Senate and some of our colleagues in Department of Psychology. And while we've had those initiatives, we've really not had a good place to distribute those things. And so we'll have a place in the hub now where we can distribute those coats and winter clothing items that so many would rely on. And that's just a couple examples of the expanded services in addition to the food that we anticipate being able to offer in the hub. And so that's another way that we'll be expanding our services once we open in the spring. I'll anticipate a question while you all are thinking about other questions you may have. Some folks have asked about like furniture. We don't have a lot of storage area. While we are growing a little bit in this hub, it's really not all the space that we would need. But we anticipate doing some time and kind of episodic events where, for example, around move out, university housing and facilities and sustainability office partner on collecting furniture and other items that students moving out of the residence halls might otherwise just throw in the dumpster, and to try to repurpose some of that. And heretofore, a lot of that has gone to other community nonprofit organizations. We envision that we might be able to have a setup where we could have some things set up over at the hub for a time-limited period where students could come and pick up those items. And then, of course, anything that doesn't get picked up, then we could donate those to local nonprofits like we currently do. But we're hopeful that things like furniture, while we won't be able to do that year-round, we'll be able to offer time-limited events to try to get some of those items to students that need them. And Lauren, I see your comment, and you work so closely with our international students. You provide such great support there, and that's largely where we see that need, right? When they travel here, many of them are surprised maybe their apartments aren't furnished. We've had several students this year, a couple from Ghana, that said, they arrived and they slept on the floor for the first few weeks because they didn't know there wouldn't be a bed in their apartment. And so trying to work to meet those needs as much as we can. Any other questions that you have, or comments, or just ideas for how we can maximize the use of the Pack Essentials Hub?
Mike, this is Linda Darrell in the Career Center. You were talking about it being a hub and having it being accessible with partners, Wake County, Raleigh, and partners. Would you envision it as a hub of activity that those partners would be invited in for, workshops, programming, to present their services to students?
Yeah, absolutely, Glenda. That both on campus and community partners, right? So I mentioned the SNAP being one example of that. We want to make sure we're connecting with students well in advance of them struggling. And so if we can offer a SNAP session at the beginning of the semester, as opposed to maybe students finding out about that resource in October and they've struggled for 2 months. But certainly, and you mentioned the Career Center, we've been in conversations with the Career Center. We appreciate so much the Career Center having the Wolfpack Style Closet. So for students to use professional clothing for interviews and for, first couple days on jobs or internships. And we talked about, should we sponsor that and have that over in the hub? But we realized, through conversations with Dr. Bell, recognized that having that at the center is probably the best location, but we might do some programming at the hub to let students know about the Career Center and encourage them to go over and check out the closet. So we may have a few items over there just to kind of tease them with and say, hey, there's much more over at the Career Center. And so those are just a couple examples of both on-campus and community partners. But yeah, Glenda, that's the vision, is that we provide that space where our students can come together, and certainly our staff using the pantry to be a part of programming and other outreach that we can do all in one place. Any other questions, comments? Rose or Taylor, any final comments from you or Stevie?
No final comments other than thank you all for coming and engaging with us.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. If you do wind up with having any comments or questions that you want to connect with us about, just send us an email, feedthepackpantry@ncsu.edu. We're always happy to get feedback and learn more information and answer any questions you have about the move.
And I'll just say in closing, thanks to all the partners that are here. It's clear that what we have is a pretty special campus community. The fact that we have people struggling with food and financial insecurity is a difficult thing. But the fact that we have so many members of our staff, our students, our faculty, and our alumni and donors who are willing to get involved and make sure that we can eradicate that on our campus says something special about the Wolfpack. And so we just appreciate all the ways that everybody on the call has supported us and will continue to do so and help us to think through. In many respects, we want to be the leader in this work around the country, but being the leader means we want to make sure that we eradicate food and housing insecurity. We want our students, most especially, to feel like this is a place where their basic needs are met and they can focus on their studies, their research, their extension, and not be worried about where their food is coming from. And it's only because of all of you that we're able to do that. So thanks so much. And again, we appreciate you being here today, and we'll be in touch with further updates soon. Take good care, everyone. I think we're ending recording now.